It's not the glow you feel when snow appears. It's not the Christmas card you've sent for years. Not the joyful sound when sleigh bells ring, or the merry songs children sing. The little gift you send on Christmas Day will not bring back the friend you've turned away. So may I suggest the secret of Christmas is not the things you do at Christmas time, but the Christmas things you do all year through.
two little boys get down there together. Hello. How are you? How you doing? Yeah, sure.
The baby
Gotta be good to eat. If you can hold on it, you gotta be able to eat it.
I see TV Kathleen.
Oh,
Get that.
did I get too close to you?
Frank, Frank.
Oh, you don't have to cry. You don't have to cry.
Oh, Kathy. Now, I wish we had a holder for these crayons. Oh, this is a good one right here. Okay. What are you doing with the... Oh, that's what you're doing. I see. Now I'll see what I can... I guess the black must be gone. Oh! Oh, that's a good one. Look at Shane. Hi, Shane.
He's looking at the TV now.
That's as good as a mirror, isn't it, Shane? Yes. There's that smile, but...
Montana Dakota Utilities earnings up 57%.
Oh, of course. You can do that. Yeah, that's a heap.
They
Yeah.
want raises.
Where's she going? You saw her, didn't you? Yes.
Must be sitting in a bad spot there for light or something.
Why you say that?
Well, the lighting, I don't know, it's probably might be the mirror or something back there. Yeah, see there's a
Yeah,
Better.
it's quite a bit lighter.
better picture now. Let's see when you can monitor with the
Yeah, that's quite a...
Have him on TV. He never pays any attention when we run it.
Frank, look on the TV there. Yeah.
he's seen that before.
Have you got the tape in now, honey?
Yeah?
Okay.
Oh, darn. How did you do that?
Oh, he's magic done. He's magic. Marge, the first time.
I tried to tell you,
That's what you think.
Marcy's recording that to show all the neighbors.
No, Kathy, Grandma, look, I'm on TV. I'm on TV. You can't show that back, can you, Bill? Oh, yes, we still. Eric, come here once. Look at this.
No.
Look on TV. Look at that. Who's on TV? Look at. Go and look at it. Go and look at the cartoons on TV.
Don't get too close.
Oh.
Don't get so close. You
Now
can't
you
see
can
it.
see everybody else, but you can't. What do you think of that, Ryan? Is that your brother on TV? Wave, Ryan. Ryan, wave.
Make some funny motions, Ryan.
Ryan, jump up and down. Do a somersault. Do a somersault, Ryan.
There you go.
Oh. Oh, we missed that.
Maybe you shouldn't do that.
Who is that? Who is that?
That's Grandpa.
Who's on there now, Eric? Who is that?
Grandma.
Grandma. What's she doing on that TV? There's Doug.
There's Doug.
Yeah. You got Natalie on mine?
Yes, we got
Why don't she kiss Chuck?
That would be insane.
Just coming in to ask you if you want to get some fresh air.
Sure.
Right before the store.
The old bicycle route, huh?
Well, no. And you can take the car if you want, because I'm not going to come over this time.
Oh,
always got the best part on there, I see.
Oh, your t-shirt?
No, of you.
Oh. Yeah. Not too much action. We're just two people around.
No, I guess not. Well, for anyone who is watching this at some future time, when I'm not here, howdy.
Oh, there. Oh, you're gonna look cute now. Grandma's gonna like these pictures. She told Grandpa he had to get pictures of you where you were smiling and cool. You gonna give us a big one? Come on. Oh, I thought you were gonna say. Well, that's pretty good. You're turning into quite a conversationalist.
Hey, little hawk. Hey. What? Come on over here. Christopher. Christopher. Little hawk. Come on, you can't swim. Come on. 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 Come on, Christopher. Come on. Come on. Come on, you can't swim.
The blues are over here. Right here.
We're right here.
The blues are over here. Oh, the blues are there. Get over there. What? Blue.
More blues. More blues.
Blue. There.
Over that way.
That's how we should have the volleyball game.
All right, we certainly want to thank you folks and welcome you for coming and sharing this 2 days with us. We're real happy we gave the invitation, and we're more happy that you folks responded and have come out as you have. I think it's only proper, as she said, that we bow our heads and for a word of prayer. We again thank thee, our Heavenly Father, for the blessings you have provided for us for this day. Guide each one of us as we fellowship together and be with each one of us for all times. Guide and bless us, we ask thee, and for this occasion and all occasions during our life. Be with us again, we ask thee in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Until they got here.
Sure.
Just stay safe. You need us to pull them together?
Take a picture of first.
The rest of them are just on their way. So.
The rest of them? There's six times the size of any of the rest of them.
Are your card or?
I'd just like to share with you some of the memories from 1948 when we drove up here with a Chevrolet truck and an Army box and a dark green canvas over it, and it was hot even when it was moving. They told us it was air conditioning, but that didn't set. I think back to a fellow who had a guitar. We had a bonfire over in the other yard here under a tree that wasn't far from the house. He taught us some pretty neat songs. That's when I first heard Found a Peanut. And I even think that was the first time I heard There's a Hole at the Bottom of the Sea. And I've since passed these on to my children, and they provided a lot of entertainment in using up time when we were traveling these long trips, and we all know how hectic they can get with a car full of kids. Or most of us do anyhow. And then I heard some fellows talking about a time when a fellow came to North Dakota, and he was from southern Minnesota. I believe it was Le County. And he was continually bragging about how good and pure and clean the air down in Le County was. He came to his car the next morning to find all 4 tires flat, and he was a little bit dismayed at this. And one of the 2 fellows who have knowledge of this is here. The other one's no longer with us. I won't mention any names. But they couldn't understand why he was dismayed. Well, if that air was that good, you know, we should have a little of it around here. I also like to share an incident from the summers that I spent at my grandfather Miller's farm near Fairmont, Dakota. And I'll always treasure them. I never heard the man speak in anger, in words that I could understand. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I never heard him complain. He was a terrific example. As I think back, I just wish that I could have spent more time with him, because I think I could have learned a lot from that man. I'll treasure the memories of the days and evenings and the houses we used to build out of cards, and how steady he was, how shaky I was trying to get those house of cards to stand up. I'll never forget how he used to spill his coffee in his saucer. And he always, like some of us, would put a little coffee in with his cream and sugar, and then sip the coffee out of the saucer. But the incident that I recall concerning not knowing the words that he was speaking happened as we were going into the fenced area near the barn. And I was up on the wagon, and I don't know what we had on the wagon. But he got off to open the gate, and he called to the team to start up. And I think I disobeyed him, because as the team jerked, I toppled off the wagon and landed in the barnyard, close to the wheel, and the wagon rolled forward maybe a couple of feet. I was getting to my feet. The wheel had passed about that far from my head. I was getting to my feet and looking up front when I saw Grandpa come around and look and see that I was okay. And he talked to those horses, the one in particular that jumped. And I remember him grabbing the halter and pulling that horse's head down and cuffing him across the ears a couple of good swats. As I recall, they were Belgians, and I remember that horse raising his feet off the ground. He was a big man. He was talking to that horse, but I don't know what he was saying. He was a little upset. Finally, I'd like to close with a little song that I picked up, and when I first heard it, I thought of the songs that Richard, who's not able to be with us here, taught us around that fire over there back in '48. It's a little story about 3 fellows who were caught stealing horses. And I think I have some people out here that are set. Okay. It goes like this. I've never done it, but I've heard it several times.
A Frenchman, an Irishman, and a Jew were sentenced to be hung down Texas way. The judge asked which tree they'd choose to die on. The Frenchman chose an apple tree and died happy. The Irishman said any tree will do. As they were waiting to see what happened, this sound came forth from the Jew. Hang me please from the gooseberry tree. Hang me please from the gooseberry tree. It's my dying request. It's the one I like best. Hang me please from the gooseberry tree. Now the judge said you surely must know that the gooseberry bush is too low. That's all right, says Mo. I can wait till it grows, till the size of the old apple tree.
That you saw when you're coming in. We now would like to know who is the oldest Lensmeyer present.
Male or female?
Any? Well, you want to divide them up? Let's say who's the oldest male. Who do we have here?
Frank is 82.
Frank Lensmeyer, over here. How many years do you admit to?
I'll be 82 years old on September the 20th.
82. Can anybody beat that? Frank, congratulations. How about who's the newest one?
We got him right here. My first grandchild.
Hold him up. Okay. We're going to be giving these gifts away. Just a second.
Frank wants you.
And
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a correction here of a statement that made a little while ago.
Yes.
Someone made the remark that the prolific Lensmeyers of North Dakota, it was the wind got pretty cold in the winter time. Now that's not the truth at all. I'll tell you what is the truth.
Finally, we're going to hear.
You know that most of this happened in Wapaton, North Dakota. And it so happened that about 4 o'clock in the morning, a freight train came through there and woke everybody up. And too late to go back to sleep.
I'm tired of being good before Christmas. I'm tired of eating spinach and corn, but Mother says Santa is watching right up until next Christmas morn. I hate being nice to my sister and brother and sharing my very best toys. I'd rather be ugly and selfish and run around making loud noise. It's boring to help make the dinner. It's boring to put away clothes. It's boring to wash and dry dishes and always keep wiping my nose. And why do I have to say thank you and may I and yes ma'am and please? I'd rather be known as a tough guy with an image like Mr. T. And then there's the issue of homework. I've done it without one complaint. My teacher's amazed at my effort. My parents are ready to faint. I want to rebel and be lazy and dye my hair purple and green. But then I'd get nothing for Christmas and I'd be grounded until I'm 16. I'm trying my best to be pleasant. I'm trying to do what I should, but if Christmas doesn't hurry and get here, I'll freak out from being so good.
He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. Away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him explain as he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all.
And to all a good night.
Today is Easter Sunday, April 19th, 1987. And we're having Easter at Paul and Leanne Holden's house. And we have Aunt Judy here from Laguna Beach, Grandma Barb and Papa Don, and Papa Frank, and Grandma Marge here at Easter. Take it away, Mr. Cameraman. Yeah, this is beautiful. Easter.
Happy Easter!
What should we do now?
Easter egg hunt!
You're kidding me. Who wants to do the Easter egg hunt?
Raise your hand if you want to do the Easter egg hunt.
Okay.
Okay?
That looks like a majority.
But we have to get tennies on, Daddy.
Ah.
My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
Plenty of
sunshine
head my way. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. Mr. Bluebird on
my shoulder.
It's the truth.
It's extra, everything is satisfaction.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay.
My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of sunshine headed my way. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. I want you to hold on to your chair. Go out outside and wash your hands.
Mallory Lensmeyer. Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
something about my wife. A young girl, 19 years old when we got married. We've been married 57 years. With 9 children that are almost all normal. And you can see tonight that you can be very proud of them. There was a lot of talent here. A lot more growing up. Just think of what will be and what may happen during the next 25 years. I wish I could be here to see it and hear it and to watch them grow up. It would indeed be a pleasure. I'll have to tell you a little bit about Margie and myself. I came off the farm and I was a traveling man for 7 years. When I met that young girl over there, and it just seemed as though we were made for each other. Farmer's daughter who worked in town most of the time, and a farm boy who spent 7 years on the road, traveling. Minnesota, South Dakota, and most of Minnesota. And we sort of felt right serious right from the beginning of each other. She made the remark to me one time, she said, I suppose, she says, that you have a girl in every town. And I said, one. I said, well, she might have a date when I get there. You have to have a reserve. Well, I always managed to have a reserve, but most was reserved for her after I met her. But when you're married to a woman, 57 years, I'm 86 years old, she is 76, and the family that the good Lord allowed us to produce with some help of our own. You saw them all tonight. Now, 2 of you didn't see, they weren't here. But we are exceedingly proud of them. We are exceedingly proud of our in-laws, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. I'm very glad to be here, very happy about the good health that the Lord has allowed us to have, and it's been a pleasure to watch my children perform, to watch my in-laws, grandchildren, yes, some great-grandchildren, and all you people that are here that are not directly related to us, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being a part of this.
Probably noticed that we use grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We often at the family reunions look back to our ancestors, and as you all know, the theme today is generations to come. We're using the generations to come.
I will gather stars out of the blue for you, for you. I'll make a string of pearls out of the dew for you, for you.
come to the time that we will ask you folks here to share your gifts and or your talents, any thoughts, skits, whatever you feel led to do.
He was a famous trumpet man from up Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man in his crowd. But then his number came up and he was gone with the crowd. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy, accompany me.
I'm very grateful and thankful to be a part of the Miller organization. And my wife and I, as you know, we have a lot of daughters. They're well qualified to say what they're going to do. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to know you people. And I'm happy to be a relative of yours. Only by marriage, but still a relative. So now go ahead with your dynamite, but don't blow us all up.
Frank and Marge had 9 children who came in groups of 3, which gave Marge much needed reprieve.
On the 8th day of June, the first child born was Jean. A dimpled little joy was he.
My God, my joy.
On the fourth day of June, they were blessed with Joanne. Each one seemed to be the perfect plan.
One of each. One of each.
One of each seemed the perfect plan.
Read the sign. Now turn around.
It says boy on the blue one and girl on the pink one.
No, the sign. Read the sign, David.
Gene's sign says, my dog and my gun comfort me. And Kelly's sign says, Joanne, the best second mom in Wapton.
He's a slow steady. Ready? He's new to the family. That's
On the 5th of December, the first namesake was Marge.
Soon after she was in charge.
And for you that didn't see the Christmas show, we had a little more than that for one. Since she's here.
Don't dare do it.
Let's not fight.
No more kids. All right.
Soon Marge was back on the nest.
On April 15, Kathy was the next tax deduction. The family was still under construction.
On the 16th of June, Marjorie's own birthday, the stork brought Frank Jr. to say.
That wasn't too good.
It needs work.
It's been a while.
Let's try it again. The stork brought Frank Jr. to stay. On the 30th of June,
Arrived a ballerina cutie.
Now you all know her as Judy. Rich.
On the 30th of June,
Arrived a ballerina. Who dat?
Now go by the name of Judah.
You don't understand. Judith married a very classy man named Rich. And
we do not call her Judy. She is far too important a lady to be called Judy. She's Judith, and we never
the
call her
vice
Judy.
president of a corporation.
Vice president of a corporation!
He's defending your honor.
But we don't call him Richard.
Judy, take on that one. Once again.
Silent night, let's not fight.
No more kids! Oh, all right!
Soon, Colonel Dobbin.
Put more bugs in the oven!
The 12th of September brought a beauty queen with brains. Michelle was the little girl's name.
On January the 7th, Melanie they did greet.
Soon they all learn the wiggle waggle beat. January 26th came the baby Aunt Leanne. She caught a falling star in her hand. There's a falling star in a pocket, save it for a rainy day. For love will touch you on the shoulder. Stardust, catch a falling star.
We had very few.
Silent night.
But to share our life
With lights seem bright.
through the years shone nine bright lights.
Lee and Patrice, Melanie, Eileen,
Michelle, Stephanie,
Judith, Mary,
Frank, Richard,
Kathleen, Ray,
Marjorie, Lee, Joanne, May,
Jean, Francis,
Frank and Marjorie's family tree.
Today, thank you all, relatives, friends, siblings, for coming and joining in what we hope to be a very special day for all of you. At this time, Daddy, I'd like to present to you a bunch of cards that all of your friends and relatives and the people who love you very much have brought with them to wish you your happy birthday on. This is a special card, Daddy, from your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. And it says to Father, Grandfather, Great-grandfather, and Great-great-grandfather.
A special thank you to a couple of first cousins of Dad that came some distance, Wampach and over at Grand. Well, I've been assigned the first 10 years, Dad. Your father, Frank Carl, had come to South Dakota from Shakopee, Minnesota, when he realized that his family was working on a prearranged marriage for him to one of the rail girls. I understand that 2 or 3 of his older brothers had already gone through with the prearrangement. But your dad wasn't satisfied with the one that they had picked out for him. So he kicked over the traces and went to visit his cousins, the Bowles, in the Kranzberg, Watertown, South Dakota area. While he was there, he met and married Elizabeth Kranz. They made their home in the Kranzberg area. You were born on a farm near Bemis, where you lived for 5 years. With your arrival, Frank Carl and Mary Elizabeth had 4 children: Ada, John, Maisie, and they named you, Frank Stephen, after your paternal grandfather. When you were 5, the family moved to a farm near Goodwin. During your early years, your mother homeschooled you, teaching you to read, write, and to do your numbers. By the time you entered grade school in Kranzberg, you were so ready that you were able to take the first 3 grades in 1 year. I remember how tough it was to take 2 in 1 year because you held me back so I could start school with Joanne, and they said they saw I was having too good a time, so they boosted me up one. It was a long time. I don't remember when I recovered from that. As a little child, you would sit on a box by the window, waiting to see your mother bring the milk back to the barn where she had gone to do the milking. You told us then how nervous you were waiting for her to return, that you sat all alone in the house. You probably were even a little scared, weren't you, Dad?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So to sum up this, on September 20th, 1911, you were 10 years old. The family lived near Goodwin, South Dakota, and among your playthings were railroad spikes that served as horses.
On September 20th, 1921, you were single, footloose, and fancy-free. You were living at home, you were farming with your father, and you were 21 years of age. On September 20th, 1931, you were a newlywed with a 3-month-old son. Your father had passed away, you were living in an apartment, you were enjoying your job, and you were 30 years old.
In 1931, you moved to the Garvey home in Breck, preparing for the birth of your second child, daughter Joanne Marjorie May, born June 4th, 1932. In 1933, you moved to the Richard home in Wapaton, where your third child, Marjorie Lee, was born on December 5th. She was born at home as mother would not leave her two babies, Jean and Joanne, to go to the hospital. A doctor and a nurse assisted in the birth. In 1934, having to borrow the down payment, you and the mother purchased your first home at 250 3rd Avenue South in Waukegan. In 1938, things began to happen again. April 15, 1938, I was born, your fourth child. June 16, 1939, Frank Richard, your fifth child, was born on his mother's birthday. June 30th, 1941, who we thought was the baby, Judith Mary, your sixth child, was born. On September 20th, 1941, you were buying your own home, your trucking business was thriving, you and your wife had 6 children, and you were 40 years old.
This was the decade in your life, Dad, that your dream of returning to farming was to be realized. September 1, 1947, your mother Mary died, and your 7th child, Michelle Stephanie, was born 11 days later. You were 46 years old. 1948, your family left the big yard and the big garden for a larger one, much larger. In fact, your wife and children moved to the remodeled home on the Ottertail farm while you were in Minneapolis, tending to trucking business, I hope. You were another step closer to your dream, renting the farm with an option to buy, and your family was living there. That same year, you traveled with your wife and family to the Miller family reunion in Palisade, Minnesota. The Miller family had accepted you into their fold, as it was appeared Mom had decided to keep you. You hauled all of us children to the reunion in the Chevrolet truck with the surplus army box on the back. Remember that? The canvas top and the side, the seats that I thought were so neat, we folded them down and we could sit on them. What a marvelous trip it was. What was especially so much fun was when the bee got in the back of the truck. I can tell this because Marge isn't here to defend herself. Marge really went wild. Why, it was so exciting. I thought she was going to jump out of the back of the truck. But darn, she didn't. We had to stop and get everything out and get the bee out and reload all the kids. And miraculously, you didn't lose any of us in the process. Oh, another important item. Your wife was pregnant again. January 1949, your 8th child, Melanie Eileen, was born. You were 48 years old. You spent part of that year in the service station business, which you had purchased. Remember the Standard Station in Breckenridge you bought from your friend Gordon Berenson? The rest of the story now. Mom and the kids worked it, pumping gas and all that. Mom got it sold in September because she was losing her workforce. School was starting. In 1950, you built a new office and maintenance building and moved Lensmeyer Truck Line Incorporated to its new location. You also put your wife Marjorie to work as office manager. That was a smart move. September 1950, your first child left the nest. Daughter Joanne married Bill Cahill of Breckenridge, handsome and tall, and with friends that had motorcycles and gave us kids rides. June 1951, your firstborn, Jean, married Marilyn Wellen of Waukegan, whose dad had the neatest Studebaker I ever saw and could make keys. In January 1953, while serving in the Army, your oldest son, Gene, contacted, I believe it was pneumonia, and he was so ill he was unable to ship out to Korea with his unit. Remember that, Dad? The Triple Nickel, the regimental combat team, which was overrun in Korea and 90% of them were killed. God was on your side there, looking out for your oldest son. July 1951, your first granddaughter, Colleen Ann Cahill, was born. The next generation was started. August 1951. Second daughter, Marjorie Lee, married William Douglas Glover.
Daddy, in 1952, June to be exact, you purchased the Iderdale farm and you realized your lifelong dream of farming and actually owning the land. In 1953, this was a great, happy year and a year filled with great sorrow. Your new grandson, Stephen Vincent Cahill, was born, but you lost your precious in-laws, Richard and Mary Dillon. They made a big difference in your life, accepting you in spite of all of your faults and flaws, allowing you to keep their beloved daughter, but they passed away, taking with them a piece of your heart and all of your children. In 1954, just 6 years after we had all moved to that lovely farm home, the farm home burned. There we were in the middle of a February cold, cold day, with the house burning down around us. All 7 children. Some had left the nest to be sure, but it was a pretty overwhelming occasion. But as usual, you and Mom rose to it. And you managed to lease the house while you were building your new house. And Daddy, do you remember what house that was that you leased? It was the rectory over in Breckenridge. And talk about life coming full circle. Did you know that that very house that you leased to take us off the street while you were building a new one because ours had burned was the very same house that you and my mother were married in? How romantic for us as we stayed in that home and realized that this was where it all began. And how romantic to realize that the results of that stay were going to be the last child our siblings began. By 1958, your son Frank Richard and your daughter Kathleen Ray had married. And in 1960, I joined that. You had 6 down, 3 to go. In April 4th, 1960, your brother-in-law Cortland, your dearest and best friend, passed away. I will never forget the friendship that you two shared, the trips you took, the visiting and the talking and the love that you felt. His loss and your loss was our loss. We learned a lot from that friendship, how to treat friends with respect, how to share, how to be apart, how to be counted. In September 21, 1961, you had 9 children, 2 daughters-in-law, 4 sons-in-law, and numerous grandchildren. You had realized your dream of farming and owning the land that you farmed. At this time, Daddy, you were 60 years old.